Hello and welcome back. It is Justin Folks, and on this beautiful Sunday morning for myself after the Bristol race, we are going to review the round of 16. And in this video, we'll highlight the races, which that may take a hot minute, and then it will end up previewing how we ended up getting to what we are today as we go into the round of 12, and you'll get to understand how each driver's fate that got eliminated was decided. And then, as mentioned, we'll preview the round of 12, and then following that, I'll give my thoughts on the 3 races in the round of 16. Lastly, I'll highlight some drivers, 4 drivers that were eliminated, and then we'll also talk about some drivers who didn't qualify for this year's playoffs, but they deserve a shout out. Other than that, let's get right into it, beginning with Darlington. At Darlington, we saw Chase Briscoe win in dominant fashion over Tyler Reddick, who was wrecked all the way back on lap 1, and Briscoe ended up winning both stages in that race as well. Josh Berry would be one of those other playoff drivers who got in that lap 1 wreck, taking himself out, and he took himself out of contention, and he had a good starting spot, but he ultimately finishes last after starting first. So that was the big chaos we saw in stage 1. Stage 2 is when we saw Ryan Blaney go spinning into the inside wall when Kyle Busch got loose, and then he got hit by Austin Dillon. So that's just a racing incident. And then after that yellow, that's when we saw Christopher Bell get some damage on pit road, and that essentially hurt their day big time, and they got pretty close to the cut line. And then during those final green flag pit stops, we saw Derek Krause catch on fire, and that ended up biting Shane Van Gisbergen, who was on a different pit strategy, and it ended his chances for a good finish. And that also included Alex Bowman as well, having issues on pit road with his pit crew. They were awful on pit road. And then Austin Dillon also had a speeding penalty after that. And overall, that's where you begin to see where 3 of these drivers' fates who got eliminated, that's where it kind of all begins here at Darlington. At Gateway, Denny Hamlin got Toyota their 200th win over teammate Chase Briscoe. This race saw a handful of cautions, with the second yellow seeing Chase Elliott and Josh Berry's day, making bad go the worst, and Berry would finish back-to-back races in last. And then we'd also see Tyler Reddick have some trouble on pit road and receive a penalty, and Briscoe would win another stage again. And then afterwards, we see our stage winner Chase Briscoe and Daniel Suarez's day, but Briscoe ended up living on. And following that, we see another playoff driver cause a wreck, with Austin Dillon just taking out his brother Ty Dillon, which is very deep in the field. It continued as we saw Kyle Larson just clean out Ryan Blaney, and that would mean Blaney's been spun out in back-to-back races. And at the conclusion of stage 2, we'd end up seeing Bubba Wallace take it. Stage 3 was fairly clean, which we did see Shane Van Gisbergen end up crashing himself into the wall, which made things even worse for him on what was not a good day already. And then on the final cycle of green flag pit stops, Ty Dillon would blow a tire. It'd keep names as Ross Chastain down the lap, as well as Van Gisbergen and Alex Bowman. And that would make those 2 drivers outside the cut line at the time even have worse days. And then the race would restart with about 25 to go, and Hamlin just sailed away the victory. For Bristol, tire wear wasn't indeed a thing, which caused this race to be hectic, and this was also a race that we saw Christopher Bell end up stealing. With the shredding of the tires, we see buildup in the rocker panel, and we see Josh Berry go ablaze, meaning he was involved in the first caution of every playoff race essentially, and he finishes last again. And he's the first one out of the playoffs just like that. After that, it'd be a fight for real estate on the bottom, and we see Riley Herbst's door Alex Bowman off the track, and his playoff hopes would appear to have diminished. And then the driver who came on top in stage 1 ended up being Ryan Blaney, something he needed after 2 rough races. After that, we see Riley Herbst cause another wreck, which had Ricky Stenhouse Jr. end up dooring Shane Van Gisbergen and seeing others pile in. That would affect the 88's handling, and then he'd be spun out by William Byron, who was trying to get the free pass. So there was no free pass, and then a non-playoff driver in Ty Gibbs ended up winning stage 2, and then afterwards, Shane Van Gisbergen would be involved in another yellow, being spun by Ty Dillon, meaning another nightmare race for the 88. Later on, things got dicey when Chase Elliott tried to fill a hole behind Austin Cindric ahead of John Hunter Nemechek, and he goes spinning off the 42 into the outside wall. and that ended his day. And then after that, we'd see Bubba Wallace have a tire issue, and he ended up getting to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and took him out. After that, we'd see Kyle Larson have an issue, and he would crash coming onto pit road, but he was already locked in. And things got worse when Denny Hamlin ended up losing a tire on behalf of his pit crew, taking out himself, including playoff driver William Byron. And the big thing was Austin Cindric had a fire in the rocker panel, the second one I'm mentioning from that race, and that put him extremely close to the cut line. And then we'd see Cole Custer just page the leader while taking out Bubba Wallace, and that ended his day. And then with a restart, that was with 4 to go, we ended up seeing Bell navigate his way on the bottom to the lead, and Keselowski went for the bump and run. But for some reason, that was all she wrote because nothing happened out of that. So how does that set us up going to the round of 12? Exactly how I told y'all in my predictions. The 4 drivers who were eliminated were Alex Bowman, who missed out by 7 points ultimately. It then beat Austin Dillon, who didn't run good, but he kept himself clean. Shane Van Gisbergen, the rookie, ends up missing out after crashing in the last 2 races. And lastly, is Josh Berry, the worst performance in the round of 16 in NASCAR history, finishing last in every single race. Going into the round of 12, there is no surprises for me, but I am afraid my perfect bracket may very well come to an end after this one. And a reminder, you can still earn playoff bonus points up until the round of 8, so this will be the last round where you can do that. And based on those points accumulating from the last round, that's why we see Denny Hamlin holding the first position, who is plus 26 above the cut line, with Hendrick Motorsports drivers William Byron and Kyle Larson tied for second, 2 points behind the leader. Our most recent winner, Christopher Bell, is plus 20 after his Bristol win. Ryan Blaney with the Bristol stage win is right there being plus 19. And the last driver being in ends up being Bubba Wallace, who won a stage back in St. Louis. The 4 drivers on the outside looking in includes Austin Cindric just 1 point behind, his teammate Joey Logano 2 points behind, along with Ross Chastain, and Tyler Reddick is 3 points back. For the next 3 races on the NASCAR schedule, we'll see the round of 12 kick off at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, aka the Magic Mile, before they return to the regular season next year, a flat track. Afterwards, it's off to Kansas Speedway, a 1.5 mile intermediate, and lastly, we'll conclude with the road course, aka the Roval at Charlotte Motor Speedway to end the round of 12. So overall, it was a good variety. I'm not going to throw any predictions here now, but it is to note that Ross Chastain, Christopher Bell, and Joey Logano participated in a tire test earlier this year at New Hampshire, so keep an eye on those 3. And then we should see Kansas just be Kansas, but we should see, I think, some more tire wear than we did in the spring. And then a very interesting road course race with some drivers on the outside who can play spoiler. Now I'm going to give you my thoughts on the past 3 races in the round of 16, beginning with Darlington, and that is where we saw Chase Briscoe dominate, as mentioned, as he stayed out of trouble mainly until the end, until he felt the pressure from Tyler Reddick. And however, this next-gen car and Dirty Air, they're just a great fit. And I feel that's why Reddick didn't get around Briscoe ultimately. And you do have to give him credit for not taking him out, but overall, I thought it was a solid Darlington race, and just seeing the tire wear become a thing was a good thing. And then we saw the lap cars do play their part when they did. This race had some chaos, but I also enjoyed the long green flag runs. For Gateway, being at this race dead tired after traveling over 10,000 miles when I did my journey from Romania and back, I was quite locked in for this race. And there were battles all around the track, and cautions honestly frustrated me, if I had to be honest. The debris caution from the breaking point marks is something I forgot to mention in the race vlog, but that was just very disappointing to see, honestly. And NASCAR had some questionable officiating early on, but it was fine. We saw the green flag pit stops at the end that got ruined by a late race caution, and overall, Dirty Air still played a part, but not as much, and I was impressed how high drivers were running. And Bristol, that we just saw. We saw a lot of tire chaos, and it frustrated me at the start, but eventually it did get better, and it was easy to then track everyone's strategy, so I was happy afterwards. It did feel like the Bristol night race for sure, and honestly, it was a very good race, and I enjoyed it after stage 1, but there was just, as mentioned, too much chaos at the start. And the frustrating thing for me that we just didn't see any like rubber buildup at all, but we did get a fairly unique race, which honestly I'm okay with. I just would like to see some rubber buildup and see the second lane come in more. I know we had like that second lane come in some, but you get what I mean. So it is what it is, honestly. Not too pleased how the tire wear was compared to practice, but NASCAR did put Goodyear in a bad position, and that results in the next gen car, and we did just have all that drama build up just for Christopher Bell to take advantage of all the chaos and win it. Pretty fair game. Now I'm going to do a highlight the drivers to wrap this up. We have 5 playoff drivers, we have the 4 drivers that got eliminated, and we have 5 drivers who failed to make the playoffs, but I'm going to mention them. The first driver of mention is Denny Hamlin. He ends up getting the win back at Worldwide Technology Raceway, starting first and finishing first, earning Toyota's 200th win, and that's Denny's 5th win of the year. I do love the confidence of the 11 car, as they didn't have great runs that they were hoping for at Darlington and Bristol, but overall, they came out of the round of 16 better than they came into it. Chase Briscoe has had an opportunity to win all of these races, and I am feeling some regret leaving him out of the round of 8, but things can happen, we'll see. He ended up winning Darlington in dominant fashion, and he swept the stages, and then he ended up winning the first stage at Gateway as well, and he also led laps at Bristol. With that all being said, that's a total of 8 playoff bonus points accumulated, which can very well be the difference maker after the conclusion of Charlotte. It is about time Christopher Bell returned to victory lane after winning 3 in a row at the start of the year. By all means, he ended up stealing this win with the late race caution, being the second guy on fresh tires, but he won, and that's massive for this team and a big momentum boost after being just completely frustrated last weekend, which is justifiable. This isn't how I expected them to win or where to win just yet, but I do believe he is going to be the best driver going into the round of 12. He does have some favorable racetracks along the way, including participating at that New Hampshire tire test that I mentioned. Next, I have Ryan Blaney. This team has showed a lot of perseverance through adversity. That ended up leading to a stage win at Bristol, and he ended up getting back-to-back 4th place finishes actually. I don't really have anything too much to say, but Blaney just needs to build off the clean Bristol race that he had. Bubba Wallace was one of the best Toyotas in the playoffs. That gets overshadowed by Joe Gibbs Racing winning all 3 races, but he competed very well. He had a very successful run at Darlington, following a stage win in Gateway, which is why he's above the cut line right now. But unfortunately, his great Bristol run saw him get LePaged. For me, I want to see Wallace just push that race aside and just be ready to give it his all, and it does help he's won at Kansas before in the round of 12, which was a non-playoff driver, but I believe he can still do it. We're going to look at the 4 drivers that got eliminated, with the first one being Alex Bowman, and for this team's standards, it was an absolute disaster. His qualifying efforts were horrific, his pit crew just completely sucked, and none of that is close to good enough. And to make matters worse, he got taken out by Riley Herbst at Bristol. He did redeem himself leading laps, but the lack of tires did not help this team when he ended up getting spun out. They gave it their all at Bristol, but it was just way too late, as they had the win after not getting stage points, and 7th wasn't good enough in that case. They went into these playoffs not in a good situation, and just like that, they exit. We have Austin Dillon, and to be honest, that speeding penalty at Darlington was very well the make or break for this team. They ran horribly at Gateway, but they did take advantage of stage points, which gave them a chance going into Bristol. But when you finish 28th there, absolutely not. They were somewhat better than I expected, but there was more bad than good, especially when you wrecked your brother. For Shane Van Gisbergen, 4 wins as a rookie is great, but what a disaster of a round of 16. Their best chance was Darlington into a late race caution, which caught them off the lead lap, and that ruined their finish. They were still above the cut line at the time, but things got worse when he wrecked himself at Gateway, and things got even worse when he was involved in 3 cautions at Bristol. This team was not ready for the playoffs, even though Shane Van Gisbergen got involved in some stuff, but it did show. For Josh Berry, I don't even know what to say. He ended up causing lap 1 wreck at Darlington. He ended his day, and then he went out there and got the fastest lap time. Interesting. Afterwards, things were just out of control when Chase Elliott wrecked him at Gateway, ending his day. Then a fire on the rocker panel ended the playoffs for Barry at Bristol. Their qualifying efforts were pretty good, honestly, but that was it, and it's unfortunate to finish last in every race when 2 of those incidents weren't at his fault, and I do wish his team the best throughout the rest of the season. Lastly, we have some non-playoff drivers, which I am giving them some compliments, so let's begin maybe with Ty Gibbs, because first off, it is unfortunate that he ended up not winning Bristol, but he can only blame himself for that, honestly, because on the last run before that yellow, he failed to take care of his tires, and he ended up missing pit road trying to be desperate against teammate Chase Briscoe. They came away with 10th, which is back-to-back 10th place finishes, but the inexperience continues to show. Clearly, he's not ready for victory lane just yet, and he is definitely feeling the pressure from somewhere. Next, I have AJ Allmendinger, and I thought Allmendinger was great at Bristol until he ended up being the test dummy leading the race that tire wear will be a factor. He still ran very well, but unfortunately Denny Hamlin losing a tire on behalf of his pit crew during green flag conditions, literally right next to Allmendinger, ended Allmendinger's great day. I thought they could have won if we saw what we did in practice and qualifying, but they do have another opportunity to play spoiler again in the round of 12. This driver is getting the biggest praises, and that is going to be John Hunter Nemechek, and he was the most spectacular non-playoff driver. He'd start the playoffs with a fantastic 4th place finish at the Toyota-dominated Darlington race, and afterwards, he finished 6th at Gateway. And then afterwards, Bristol didn't treat him as good, but he finished 14th. He earned stage points in literally every single race, and he moves up to 22nd in points. Next, I have Cole Custer, and I'm not so much talking about the driver, even though his slippage, the Cost yellow with about 10 to go, absolutely set me off. Anyways, the Haas factory team, once known as Stewart Haas Racing, will be returning to Chevrolet, who's been running Ford since the year 2017. It also sounds like they're going to have some Hendrick Motorsports support, which is a positive for them, because the only 2 races, more like 3, that we saw Cole Custer compete in was Daytona for both races, and then Mexico City. This will also be quite telling if he deserves to keep his ride after 2026, or will the likes of Sheldon Creed or Sam Mayer in the Xfinity Series potentially take his ride. Lastly, we have Corey Heim. We talked about him before. In 23-11, they ended up getting more races for him, and he ended up finishing a career best 6. And for a driver that's full-time in a NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, this is fantastic, as he ended up finishing 3rd in the Truck Series race as well. He ends up getting a 6th place finish in the Cup Series, so that's amazing. And I'm not too sure what his 2026 is going to look like just yet, but the fact that he has ran better than Riley Herbst minus 18 DNQ at Chicago is quite telling of his potential. Well, that will do it. I'm going to try to fit in another race vlog for y'all, but we're going to have to see. I hope y'all end up enjoying the round of 12, and if I don't see you at a race, it will be at the conclusion of the round of 12 and previewing the round of 8 like this video. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.